The IMF approves almost $300 million for Barbados after less than 4 months of negotiations with the new government. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, October 2nd. From the CMC News Centre in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has approved $290 million under an extended fund facility for Barbados to help government execute a homegrown economic program to fix the ailing economy. And by Wednesday, $49 million of that will be transferred to the Central Bank of Barbados. The IMF said the remainder of the funds will become available once the island successfully completes 7 semi-annual reviews. The Washington-based financial institution said on Monday that the loan, which was granted in support of the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation, or BERT plan, will help the island restore debt sustainability, strengthen the external position, and improve growth prospects. Chief Economic Counselor and Barbados's lead negotiator with the IMF, Ambassador Dr. Clyde Maskell, said the funds were being provided at a rate much lower than the private market. And he said the approval was a victory for Barbadians, particularly as it had come less than 4 months after the new government, which took office in May, began negotiations with the IMF. Meantime, one of government's economic advisors, Professor Avinash Prasad, says he expects confidence in the economy to return and for the adjustment program to continue with less pain.
In my view, in fact, the most important reason to have the IMF backing in plan is not the money, because we're such an indebted country that ultimately borrowing money is not our solution. But it's about having this credibility that if the IMF approves your plan, others want to lend to you, and your policy doesn't have to overcommit. It doesn't have to be so draconian. It has to just work, as opposed to catching up and trying to prove yourself because you have no credibility. So that's the real reason why we have gone to the IMF. It's not because that their funding is absolutely critical. It is that if external people have looked at the plan and believe it is financeable, it is credible, it hangs together, the numbers make sense, after 10 years in which people did not believe that for Barbados, then it actually means that we don't, we have to just do what we have to do. We don't have to do more.
And Dr. Kevin Greenidge, who works for the IMF but has been seconded to government as an advisor, said the IMF's stamp of approval of the BERT program would positively influence other funding agencies and foreign investors to provide assistance to Barbados. On the economic front in Trinidad and Tobago, Opposition leader Kamla Prasad Besessar has described the budget delivered by Finance Minister Com Imbert on Monday as a pie-in-the-sky budget that can only work on Fantasy Island. Imbert presented a $51.7 billion budget to Parliament, outlining new taxes, improved tax collection measures, and initiatives to safeguard the disabled community and senior citizens, among others. But the opposition leader contended that it seemed the minister himself did not agree with the budget and was even ashamed to mention its theme until the end of his presentation because he didn't believe it himself.
The point I would like to make is that he engaged in statistical conmanship. It's as though he's living on Fantasy Island. Further, some may say he was delusional in his comments. But he believes that everybody in this country is living in on Fantasy Island. Some might say La La Land, because the only thing he forgot to say is hashtag Trinidad and Tobago. Hashtag Trinidad and Tobago is not a real place. No one in this country feels any growth. No one in this country feels any recovery. No one in this country feels any turnaround in their pockets and in their homes and in the quality of their lifestyles. And when he spoke, it was as though he was ashamed of being a baby because he was not convinced himself of the theme he had chosen for the budget.
The opposition leader also disputed the unemployment figures provided by the finance minister, claiming that some 30,000 people had lost their jobs since 2015. On the issue of the closure of the refinery of state-owned oil company Petrotrin, Prasad Besessar said Imbert failed to provide any valuable information on the way forward. She described it as the reading of the funeral rites of the Petrotrin workers and their families and communities.
The minister shamelessly refused to give details about the closure of the refinery and details of the separation plans and the compensation package. Yes, he talked about how they found themselves where we are today in terms of who did what and didn't do, and so Petrotrin is here today. But there were no details as to what are the plans, how we go forward, and no details of the separation packages, except he gave the lump sum numbers. We have no idea of how it's going to be actually given out when that time comes. And I think this, again, is a testimony to their competence, that after 3 years going into their fourth, we could not get one word about projects delivered, things completed.
The 22-year-old Trinidadian who tried to steal an American Airlines jet from Orlando Melbourne International Airport last month will be deported to the Twin Island Republic on Wednesday. Nishal Sankat accepted the deportation under a plea deal that will also see him being prevented from returning to the United States. The Florida Institute of Technology aviation student, who is also the son of former principal of the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies, Professor Clement Sankat, pleaded guilty on Monday to burglary of a conveyance. On September 20th, he drove his car outside the airport, got out the vehicle and left it running, hopped the airport's perimeter fence, and boarded the plane, which was parked for maintenance. Prosecutors said he planned to steal the plane to harm himself. The Trinidad and Tobago government said on Tuesday that it had been informed by U.S. law enforcement authorities about Sankat's deportation, and they were ready to receive him, just as they would any Trinidadian national who was deported. Charles Savarin was on Tuesday sworn in as Dominica's president for a second 5-year term, with Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit saying he was not only constitutionally elected, but was undisputedly the man for the job. The swearing ceremony came a day after opposition legislators walked out of Parliament before the vote on Savarin's nomination, charging that the election was taking place during the 14-day period designated for nomination of candidates. At Tuesday's swearing-in, Prime Minister Skerrit stood by his government's position that Savarin was the right man for the job.
We have many people in Dominica who are qualified to hold the office of president, but no one can contest the qualification of His Excellency. And I'm not speaking about the narrowness of the qualification as provided for in the Constitution. I am speaking beyond that, in terms of his own leadership, his abilities, his competencies. His Excellency Charles Savarin certainly has all of the qualifications to hold the office of President of our country.
During Monday's parliamentary sitting, even before the opposition walkout, opposition member for Roseau South, Danny Lugay, was ordered out of the chamber following an outburst as Attorney General Levi Peter spoke. Lugay repeatedly refused to comply with Speaker of the House Alex Boyd Knight's instructions, and as he was escorted out of Parliament, he insisted that the process was illegal. And although Prime Minister Skerrit did not specifically identify either situation, he warned against disrespect.
We are sowing in our children some very dangerous seeds. That if our children are hearing us speaking in a disparaging and disrespectful manner to people in authority, I assure you that he will start disrespecting you, and your home would be a very difficult place to reside. And we should never been religious of internecine political considerations in our respect for authority.
Well, after his swearing in, President Saverin thanked government for demonstrating the confidence it did in electing him on Monday, and he promised he would carry out his duties in a manner befitting the office.
At my last inauguration, I indicated to you, the members of Parliament, and to all citizens and residents of Dominica, that I was assuming the office of President without malice or ill will towards anyone, without fear of intimidation, and with respect for the traditions, the laws, and Constitution of Dominica, which I swore to uphold. I remained true and loyal to these commitments, and by the blessings and munificence of God Almighty, look forward with great optimism to further discharging the functions of the office of President with dignity and dedication, impartiality, objectivity, fairness, and consideration for all in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution.
During his address, President Saverin also encouraged Dominicans to work together for the benefit, reconstruction, and further development of the country, which had been hard hit by Hurricane Maria in September last year. He said the country had come a long way since then, but there was still a lot of work to be done to build back better and stronger and achieve the goal of making Dominica the first climate-resilient country in the world.
The road ahead is going to be challenging, but we have shown in the past that we are up to the task. To succeed at this task, however, we need to embrace each other as fellow Dominicans. We have to set aside our differences, whether they are religious or political, whether we live at home here in Dominica or abroad in the diaspora, whether we support the government or are opposed to it, we must work together for the benefit, reconstruction, and further development of Dominica.
Coming up in Caribbean Newsline, an investigation ordered into a gun attack on an opposition politician in Haiti. Stay with us.
Imagine a tropical getaway where you can indulge in unsurpassed cuisine, culture, and adventure this side of the hemisphere at a special rate. Fall for Barbados this October and dive into the rich offerings of the Caribbean Sea, or hear the stirring melodies of jazz at the Elan Trotman Jazz Excursion. Explore fine dining with our world-renowned Barbados Food and Rum Festival. Journey to our many attractions. There is so much to see and do in Barbados this October. Book today with code #4BGI.
So you're performing today, right? What is it that brought you here besides the actual performance? Is there anything bigger than that, the message in itself?
I mean, I've been involved with Pordev for about 8 years now. I actually helped open one of their schools, the École Nouvelle Zoologie. I went down there every day in like August 2010 to September, getting pictures and birth certificates, a whole registration process I was completely involved with.
Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse has ordered an expeditious investigation into Monday's gun attack on the newly appointed Secretary General of the Rally of Progressive National Democrats. Police said Eric Jean-Baptiste was traveling in a vehicle with his 3 children and 2 bodyguards when they were attacked by unidentified gunmen. Jean-Baptiste is reported to have been wounded in the arm, but the others were unhurt. President Moise has wished him a speedy recovery and said instructions have already been issued for the investigation to be carried out to shed light on the assault. Condemnation of the armed attack has also come from the Prime Minister and other government officials, as well as opposition politicians. Police in Jamaica say they have recovered the body of a 6-year-old boy who was swept away by floodwaters in Clarendon on Monday afternoon. Heavy rains dumped huge amounts of water on the town, leaving streets and cars flooded. The Maypen police say that about 3 p.m. on Monday, the boy was on the way home with his 13-year-old female cousin. The two reportedly attempted to cross a flooded channel and were swept away by the water. Police say the teenager managed to pull herself from the water, but the younger boy was swept further downstream by the strong current. In other news, Guyana's prison service is continuing to seize several officers involved in smuggling prohibited items into the country's jails. Speaking on the occasion of the 35th anniversary of the service, Public Security Minister Kemraj Ramjatan made an appeal to the officers to speak out against wrongdoing. We get the details in this HGP Nightly News report.
28 officers have been dismissed from the Guyana Prison Service so far for 2018. Prison service figures show that 11 of those officers were charged for trafficking-related offenses. 12 were interdicted from duty, while 9 are charged either departmentally or criminally for trafficking-related activities. As the prison service celebrates another milestone, the issue of collusion was primarily the message of the day. First up was the Minister of Public Security, who urged those gathered not to be silent on the burning issue of collusion between prison officers and inmates.
The fact that we can go and introspect and say that, I should not have done that, or I should not have seen my colleague do that and not speak up. As I have said on several occasions, silence is violence. We shut our mouths to the wrongdoings, it will occur. So we must speak out.
The minister was stern when he spoke of what can be deemed the surging levels of staff corruption in the prison system. This seems to be the latest obstacle in a long line faced by the prison administration in the escalating issue of contraband smuggling. Be professional, Minister Ramjatan urges. Prison searches will continue, that's for sure. And most recently, raids conducted at the various prisons revealed a number of prohibited items, with campaigners saying that the successes of impromptu searches in prisons are an embarrassment to the prison service, as the same items are unearthed every time.
And the greatest of services, the greatest of organizations and institutions are made up primarily of individuals who, upon seeing wrongdoing, speak out about it. And then also try to help the brother or the sister come out of it so that we can have a better institution.
The man at the helm of the prison system, Gladwin Samuels, is of the view that the rogue elements of the prison service will weed themselves out.
Of course, there are some rogue elements in our midst who are like salt and pepper to a fresh wound. But by and by, they will weed themselves out.
Ahead in Newsline Sport, Windward Islands Volcanoes prepare to launch the defense of their regional Super 50 title. We'll be right back.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. Clear roads and clean up debris from surrounding areas.
Dominica's World Creole Music Festival in 2018, October 26, 27, 28 at the Windsor Park Stadium in the capital city, Roseau. 3 nights, over 8 genres, 40 years of independence, one location, Dominica, the 20th edition of Dominica's World Creole Music Festival. For more information, like our Facebook page, Dominica Festivals. Visit our website, www.dominicafestivals.com for all travel, accommodation, and ticketing details. My love, my home, my Dominica. Building a resilient nation. See you there! Proudly sponsored by the Government of Dominica and Discover Dominica Authority.
Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, Nadine Stewart Phillips, says Trinidad and Tobago should use the occasion to reflect on the progress this country has made in the past 4 decades.
Today, we take the opportunity to demonstrate our patriotism to our country and to rediscover what defines us as a people and as a nation.
We continue with sports now. Windward Islands Volcanoes will launch the defense of their regional Super 50 title when they clash with a star-studded Trinidad and Tobago Red Force in the tournament's curtain raiser at Queen's Park Oval in Port of Spain on Wednesday. Despite the low-key build-up, the October 3rd to 28th championship holds a special significance for players as they will be bidding to impress ahead of next year's ICC 50 Overs World Cup in England. As such, Red Force will boast the likes of Dwayne and Darren Bravo, Kieron Pollard, Sunil Narayan and Lendl Simmons, all of whom have been out of West Indies colours for extended periods for varying reasons. Their return adds flavour and anticipation to the tournament, and Red Force skipper Dinesh Ramdin said their presence also made the 11-time champions formidable opponents. Volcanoes, meanwhile, despite stunning Barbados Pride in last year's final to win their 4th title, will understandably start Wednesday's contest as underdogs. Last season, they were an unfancied side, especially after losing their first 3 matches of the competition. But they won their next 5 games and brushed aside Jaguars in the semi-finals before clinching the final. In the other match of the doubleheader, Canada clashed with West Indies B at the Brian Lara Stadium. Group B, which bowls off in Barbados on Thursday, features the likes of Pride, Leeward Islands Hurricanes, Jamaica Scorpions, United States and combined campuses and colleges. Fast bowlers Kimar Roach and Alzari Joseph have been handed all format contracts, but short format opener Evan Lewis has snubbed a white ball offer in the 2018-2019 retainer contracts announced by Cricket West Indies on Monday. Lewis, a key member of the Windies one-day and T20 side, will be uncontracted for the next year after opting not to tie himself to a retainer. CWI said in a statement that Lewis had been offered the white ball contract and declined. The 26-year-old left-hander has played 35 ODIs and 17 T20s and has already struck 200s in the shortest format. 30-year-old Roach and Joseph, who's 21, will be joined by Test and one-day captain Jason Holder and stroke maker Shea Hope as the 4 players with all format contracts. Joseph, a member of the successful 2016 ICC Under-19 World Cup side, has been out of action for most of the last 9 months, recovering from a back injury. But exciting left-hander Shimron Hetmeyer, who has emerged as one of the most valued talents in West Indies cricket, will only hold a red ball contract for the next year. Well, the veteran quartet of Stephanie Taylor, Deandra Dottin, Marissa Aguilera and Anisa Mohammed headline a list of West Indies women's players rewarded with retainer contracts by Cricket West Indies. The contracts have been backdated to run from July 1st to June 30th, 2019. 20-year-old opener Hayley Matthews, one of the side's leading batsmen, is on the list along with fast bowlers Shamilia Connell and Shakira Selman. Shemaine Campbell, who only returned to the international setup for the ongoing South Africa series following a 2-year spell in the wilderness, has also landed a contract. Trinidadian Renice Boyce has been included in the group despite a poor start to her international career, which has seen her axed from the squad for the ongoing series against South Africa. Meanwhile, the more experienced Britton Cooper and Kycian Knight have been overlooked. West Indies are involved in a 5-match T20 series against South Africa, where they lead 2-0 after 3 matches. They drew the preceding 3-match ICC Women's Championship Series 1-1 at Kensington Oval in Barbados. Well, staying in the women's game, West Indies medium pacer Shakira Selman says the Windies will be the team to beat in the upcoming T20 World Cup in the Caribbean. In this report from TV6's Vinod Narwani, we hear the Barbadian is confident that the side will retain the title for a second time.
The West Indies women are preparing for the T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and are currently engaged in a 5-match bilateral series against the visiting South Africans. Part of the squad is 29-year-old Barbadian medium pacer Shakira Selman, for whom this is a very special occasion.
That means a lot to me. It means a lot to the team as well. It's the first standalone T20 tournament for the women, and it's really an honor to have it here in the Caribbean, especially being defending champions.
And looking at some of the teams coming, which teams do you think the West Indies need to be most wary of?
Well, T20, the shorter format of the game, it's always a challenge. So all of the teams are going to be coming here. We're looking at all of the teams, especially the ones in our group. But for over the last few years, we know England and Australia have been our toughest competitors, and we're really preparing for them.
The Windies are the defending T20 World Cup champs, having beaten the Aussies in the 2016 final in Kolkata. Going into the tournament in November, the girls are eager to defend their crown.
And the spirit is very good. We've become a lot like a family now over the last few months. Like I said, we've been together, we've been living together. So it's actually brought us a lot closer. And I think we're prepared.
And how confident are the girls of retaining their crown?
We're very confident. We're going to play our best foot, put our best foot forward. We know it's going to be very challenging. We know everyone will be coming looking to beat West Indies because we're very good, especially in T20 format. But we're very confident. We're going to play our best cricket, and we know if we do that, we're aiming for a big chance.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Let me start up by saying the energy, turn up. So the uniform, turn up. In that performance, you had some moments that were some awesome moments. And before I give you a score, those awesome moments are going to get a prize.
You have quite an extensive background, a non-legal background, which I found very interesting. I understand you used to be a fisherman in Alaska, right?
I was. I worked back deck for a few years in the Gulf of Alaska, fishing crab, and then moved out of that. It was pretty sporadic work, and moved into deep sea diving for a time.
So you're a certified deep sea diver?
I am.
This month on Caribbean Passport, we take a bite into Barbados at the Food and Rum Festival. We get an intimate look into this world-class event by top chefs and mixologists. And if that isn't enough spice, we visit Pure Grenada. All coming up right here on this station.
A recap of the major developments of this day. The IMF approves a $290 million loan for Barbados. And in sport, Windward Islands Volcanoes prepare to launch the defense of their regional Super 50 title. That's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sports round the clock, log on to CanadaNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and subscribe to CaribVision's YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.